Welcome, one and all, to Creative Spark, my new interview series where I talk to cool people about the cool things that they do. And this time I'm joined by, according to half of the Dungeon Dudes, the hottest man in D&D content creation, Colby, or D&D Deep Dives, as you may know him.
Yeah, yeah. Kelly and I have a bit of a bromance going, don't we?
It's important, I think. But yeah,
Well,
welcome.
how's it going?
I'm
Thanks, Jason.
I'm
How's it
alright.
going?
I'm alright. Um, yeah, that's it. That's about as far as my brain can process. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm really good. Sort of neck deep, both in slogging through. Well, not slogging anymore. Preparing content for the new 2024 D&D stuff, right? The embargo for which drops 2 weeks from the time of this interview, anyways.
Mm.
And that's awesome and exciting. And I just love kind of thinking about all of that stuff that's going on and preparing content for it because I've had the new player's handbook for a couple months now. But then also a new non D&D project that I'm kind of in the middle of right now that I was just talking to you about this
Mhm.
Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archive TTRPG that's going to launch on Kickstarter in about 3 weeks, I think. And I'm doing a kind of a deep dive video on that too, that they're having me do and going to put on their Kickstarter page and everything, which is really cool. And I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan, so that's exciting. So, anyways, really busy, but living the dream at the same time. So definitely can't complain. And yeah,
Could be worse.
for sure.
Let's start at the beginning because that's generally a good place to start, I find.
A
Um,
very good place to start. Wait, are you a Sound of Music fan? That's kind of a US thing.
I'm
I don't
a
know.
musical fan. I haven't really watched The Sound of Music though,
Okay,
but
well,
I am a musical fan
well,
in
that
general.
go watch it, and you'll know why I just sang
That's
that
fine. Well, yeah,
line
I'll understand
after
the
you
reference
said what you
later
said.
then. So yeah, what made you want to start a YouTube channel, and how did you land on your build guide videos?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. So, I mean, I've been playing D&D since I was in what you would call middle school or junior high. So I was, 12, 13 years old. I played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't quite the very, very, very first version, but it was close and loved it. Played with my friends, played for 3 or 4 years. And then it got to the point where like the social stigma
Mm.
of like being labeled as a nerd became too great for at least my dungeon master at the time. And so things sort of dissolved. And ever since that day, I was looking for a group to play with and just didn't know where to go or how to find them until a few years ago now. I guess it was probably 7, 8 years ago. I found a group of friends through work, actually, and we started playing. They had just started a campaign, and I found out about it, and I was like, I must play with you guys, and so they let me in, thankfully, and we started playing. And after just it was probably 3 years or so. I I remember, like, I was playing it. We were in our second campaign at this point, and I was playing a blade singer
Mhm.
wizard, and just absolutely loved it and felt like this character is so good, but they're also so powerful. And I always was kind of a min-maxy optimizer
Mm.
type, anyways, back from my days playing World of Warcraft and things like that, right? I was the guy going on, the all of the forums and using talent
Mm.
calculators and to see just how much damage per round could I squeeze out, of my rogue and that kind of thing. So I'm playing this blade singer and going, gosh, this character feels so like powerful. And I felt like I'm doing a lot of damage and I have all these other cool things. And I'm like, and I know based on the internets that like there are kind of known builds
Mm.
that are supposed to be the best, at least for damage, the Hexblade Warlock
Mhm.
that takes Polearm Master and Great Weapon Master and casts darkness on themselves and uses Devil's Sight so that they always have advantage on their attacks is one, right? The, say, Battle Master Fighter that takes the Sharpshooter feat and the hand crossbow and makes tons of hand crossbow attacks with an extra 10 damage, that's one.
Mm.
And I kind of went, I wonder if that's true. If that, I wonder how much damage, like if you really like took a deep dive into the character, like, and built them and tried to optimize them as much as you could, like, what does the damage actually look like, at whatever level you're want to looking at and at whatever armor class? Because people, I feel like would say, oh, this is the best because look at how much damage they can do at level
Mm.
20. And it's like, that is not useful for me. Like, I don't play the game at level 20 and
Mm.
hardly anybody does. I want to know what it looks like at level 3 and 5 and 9. You know what I mean? And also, like, not every attack is going to hit because enemies have armor class. So I'm not just attacking a target dummy here. Like, I want to know, well, yeah, that's great, but how do I make it really good and where is it at compared to armor classes here or there? So anyways, all of those things, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna do that for like a Hexblade Warlock,
Mm.
and I want to compare it to my Bladesinger build that I've done. And then, well, what about a ranged weapon user, and what about this? And so I was just like keeping spreadsheets for myself and crunching numbers and graphing things.
Mhm.
And I was like sharing it with the rest of my table, the guys and one gal, I guess, that I played with at the time, going like, "Isn't this cool?" And to a person, they were like, "No, like this is boring," and like, and and I don't care, and or almost, no, I'm not going to say hostile, but like, dude, like it's not just about the numbers, right?
Mm.
Like you're reducing this like great like fantasy role play story to numbers, and you're ruining the game. Not really that level, but I know that that opinion exists
Mm.
among a lot of people out there, right? And I was like, okay, you guys aren't very interested in this, but surely there are like people out there
Mm.
who would be, right? um and so I started looking because I still wasn't thinking I'm gonna like make a podcast or
Mm.
whatever. I'm just like looking on like all my podcast feeds, just searching like D&D character creation, optimization, and I couldn't find anything. Maybe I just wasn't looking in the right place. Admittedly, I didn't think to look on YouTube because in my head it was like, this is a podcast.
Mm.
This is just like this is just people talking about stuff. Like, I don't need visuals
Mm.
here. Maybe a link to a graph or a spreadsheet or something, but like, but that's it. Um, and I couldn't find anything. And so, I did follow just the Dungeon Dudes. They were really the only channel that I kind of knew of without searching much. Um, I discovered Treant Monk after I started my own channel, and I was
Mm.
like, oh, this guy's kind of doing the same thing. I could have just been watching him. But anyways, I'm just like, okay, fine. Like, I'll just do it myself then. Like, and it was COVID. It was in the middle of COVID. It was the summer of 2020,
Mm.
and so nobody was leaving their house, and I'm just like, I've got extra time on my hands. I'm like, I'm just gonna turn on a mic and record this and put it up as a podcast. And sure, maybe I'll hit the record button on my laptop webcam and make it a YouTube video too.
Mm.
Why not? So I recorded 3 of them because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to launch with like more than one episode,
Mm.
apparently. So I read. I recorded 3 of them, and then launched them all on the same day. And then I just started doing like one a week. And at the time, I remember thinking like, I'm gonna run out of build ideas. Like, this isn't gonna last. But I started writing down, ideas as I went, like, oh, this might be cool. Oh, that might be cool. And then people started watching and making comments of like,
Mm.
oh, have you ever thought of doing this? Or I'd love to see a build for this subclass or this character concept. Or what if you took this and mixed it with this?
Mm.
I've heard that can be cool. And so I started getting sort of ideas from the community as well as ideas of my own and started making this to-do list that's now like 7 pages long, single spaced still, and it's 4 years later, and I've done 170 something D&D builds, and yeah, I don't know, here we are.
Still going
That was
strong.
a that was a long answer to a short question, and in case you didn't know this about me yet, that's pretty much I'm incapable of being concise, and so I
It's
apologize.
perfectly fine. It's very good in people that are being interviewed. Also, you ticked off like 3 of the questions I had. So it's just
Good.
much like your builds, we're just being efficient. And I think that's the important thing.
Right.
Do you ever get time to actually test out your builds?
Um, Rarely. So and that's maybe a weakness of them, right? People like to point out sometimes, and they're like, "This is great on paper, but like, get it into an actual combat encounter." And I always say actual, like actual imaginary, because it's not an actual combat encounter. But you get it into the game, right? And it doesn't work that well for this reason and this reason and
Mm,
this reason. And to be fair, a lot of times, those are valid points. Um, I don't play the game nearly as much as I think about the game and think about character builds and build characters for it, right? Like I'm sure lots of people and probably especially lots of my audience. But yeah, I do occasionally get what's difficult is you get into a campaign of D&D and it might take a year or two or more, right?
yep.
Depending on how often you're playing, depending on the campaign. Um, and it becomes worse, as you are probably experiencing, when you add children to the mix,
Yep.
and the people that you're playing with also have children and
Yep.
or spouses and partners and full-time jobs and et cetera. And so I used to play once a week, and it got to a point where it was like, that's too much. It's too much of a strain on our families. And
Mm,
so we decided to go down to once a month, but even then coordinating schedules sometimes is tricky. So needless to say, I don't play as much as I'd like. And then if you're not just playing a bunch of one shots all of the time,
mm,
then you're not getting a chance to test out your characters all that often. So I have played a handful of them. I'd say it's probably only 10 or 15
mm,
maybe over the years. And so yeah, that's hard, and that's why I love it. I love it when people in the comments tell me, oh, I got a chance to play this
mm,
character or that character in a campaign and it was awesome, or it didn't work as well as I had hoped because of this reason or whatever. I love hearing that because it almost feels like you're seeing your children like grow and have these experiences where they're flourishing and leaving the nest or something. I don't know, but anyways, yeah, I wish I could play more.
yeah, it's tough. I somehow play 3 times a week on average, which is
Oof, lucky.
a lot. No, I know. And
Yeah,
so there's 2 groups. In the main group, 3 of us have kids. So I don't know how we
mm.
manage it.
That's it.
Um,
That's impressive. You have very lenient partners, for those of you who have partners.
my wife is a saint.
Yeah. Well, so is mine, to be fair. But yeah, I think she's helped me realize, that I can sometimes get my priorities out of whack. So I've been working to get back in alignment there, I guess. I don't know.
It
Anyways,
can be tricky to do, especially when
yeah.
the things that you do for work are fun and things like that as well. It's so easy
Yes.
to, oh, I'll just do this.
Right, right, right. For sure.
Um, have you ever DM'd or do you just play?
Good question. I have only, well, okay. Technically, I've DM'd twice. The first time was when I was in junior high, and it was a horrendous experience. And that's maybe that's what turned me off to it and made me not want to ever DM again. Because, we were 13-year-old, 14-year-old boys, and everything that entails. And my friend who was the sort of always DM of our group was like, I want to play, you want to DM? And I was like, sure. So I read all the Dungeon Master's Guide, like learned the rules really well. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Launched the campaign, and it was a disaster. And everybody was just basically making life miserable for me and challenging me on everything, especially the kid who was usually the DM. He's like, that's not how it works, and you're wrong. And like, oh, I can do this or I can do that. And I'm like, can he? Maybe I'm wrong. And like, it was a nightmare. So that didn't last very long. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago, I DM'd a game for it was my brother, my son, and my nephew, my brother's son.
Mm.
And we thought, hey, this would be cool to like play with our kids, and it was fun. But the boys didn't take to it as much as we'd hoped.
Mm.
I think they were more interested in video games, and they would be on their iPad like with the character sheet,
Mm.
but then like when it wasn't their turn they were like on whatever Animal Crossing, or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like some other game, or not paying attention. And I'd just be like dude, no, like, okay, stop. You need to like, come on, like be present, and get back to your character sheet. And what do you do? So it was fun. And there were moments where you could see them kind of getting into it and enjoying it. And then
Mm.
there were moments where they were a little bit like, this is boring. So it didn't last. And I really haven't DM'd otherwise, and don't have a lot of interest in doing so. And I feel almost sort of guilty saying that, because it makes me feel like selfish, like I'm a taker and not a giver. Um, but yeah, I definitely prefer playing, and I'm not as interested in like world building
Mm.
necessarily. I love jumping into other people's worlds.
Yeah.
But that's not been a huge like impulse for me to sort of tell a story from the director's point of view.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, uh, I just don't DM much at all, and don't have a lot of interest in it either. So I hope that doesn't make me a bad person.
I don't think it
But
does. I think that because
anyways,
there's plenty of people that just want to DM as well.
sure,
When I
sure,
talked to Pointy Hat last week, he said that he much
yeah,
prefers DMing over playing,
yeah.
and I've got a few friends who are the same.
Maybe, just maybe, what that means is Pointy Hat is a better human than I am.
I can't make the
or
comparison though. That's
or
not
a
up to me.
kinder, more selfless one, at least.
When you do play, do you get into the roleplay side as well as the combat side? Obviously, your videos are very mechanics focused. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking that, and for giving me a chance to try and convince the world that I am like really into role playing, and it is very important to me. um because I am. And you could see, like, so we used to for about a year or two, we were recording our games and doing an actual play. And so you can see those if anybody's interested. There's a channel. We split off the channel. At first I was putting them on my own channel, and then I was like, let's separate these. So it's called Tales of Aneria, 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 Tales of Aneria.
I'll put a link somewhere.
And you can, yeah, and you can watch some of our games. I mean, to warn you, the audio visual is not top tier. This is not Critical Role here, and we are all very much amateurs. But I feel like I do a pretty good job of like getting into character. I like to try and find a voice for my character or an accent.
Mm.
Usually, it's just a really bad British accent. I could probably use some coaching from you on that. But yeah, like I do really think that it is. How do I say? Without the role play aspect, right? You might as well just be playing a board game
Mm.
or a deck building game or a video game.
Yeah.
The thing that makes TTRPGs, in my opinion, better than all other games is, the ability to get into
Mm.
character, become a character, and tell a story, with your friends. And as much as I love the combat and the mechanics, which, I do, and sure, if I'm being honest, My favorite part of the game's probably the combat. Yeah, sure. Like, no surprise, I'm a little bit of a murder hobo, but um, but yeah, like what makes it great is the role play and the character development and the storytelling, right?
Hmm.
No question.
Cool. Um, let's talk about the Colby Awards that you just put up.
Yesterday.
Literally
Yeah, they
yesterday at
just
the
came
time of
out
recording
yesterday.
this, which
Yeah,
might be,
yeah.
if I'm an idiot, which I am, this will probably go up
No.
tomorrow. So this will be 2 days ago at the
Okay.
time of this going up. Yeah, talk to me about the inspirations for that. Was that like was it designed as like a closing piece on the standard 5e arc, or was it just something you wanted to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it was more the former than the latter. It was like because so about once a year now I have done like a ranking my builds
Hmm.
video series, but those aren't really that's not really what people are looking for when I put out those videos because I don't know if you know, but like every build that I do, almost every build that I do, I will give them a tier
Hmm.
score, just as a way to kind of organize them because there's so many of them at this
Hmm.
point, right? Um, and to try and put them all into one spreadsheet with one graph, the graph is unreadable because there's just like there's 100 lines,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, we've got to like put these into buckets here. And when I first was trying to decide how am I going to do that, I didn't think I'm just going to try to objectively decide like which is my best build because there's no way to be objective there for
No.
one. And for two, that felt like really time consuming. I hadn't played these characters in game,
Mm.
like we already talked about. Like, can I really know? So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna like make it a numbers thing, and I'm just gonna if it's a damage build, I'm gonna like take the damage that they do and just give it an average over, level 6, 9, 13, and 17 for every armor class, and like there's your tier score. Um, and so I have, 5 tiers now of like sustained damage builds, um, and with whatever 12 to 15 builds in each tier,
Mm.
right? And then another one for like Nova burst damage and another one for tanks. And so every year, like the spreadsheets get too crowded and I have to make a new tier and reorganize things. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna release a ranking my videos
Mm.
build. But really it's just like here's the mathematical averages of these characters, and maybe I'll talk about them for a second. And I thought it would be fun to maybe try to do like uh, some sort of like ranking like you see people do all the
Mm.
time, right? I'm going to do a tier ranking video of every subclass,
Yep.
S tier, A tier, B tier, all the way down to whatever. And I'm like, okay, I've got 170 builds, I can't do that,
That's a long old
because
video.
that's I don't yeah, I mean, first of all, it would take me weeks to like go through them all and try and assign a tier to every one of them, right? And second of all, again, like the video would be too long, and it's not particularly objective. So let's just do 3 categories. And so yeah, as I was thinking, it was a few weeks ago, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do for the video that's going to come out on July 16th? I'm like, normally it's open up my to-do list
Mm.
and take a look at something and find inspiration for a character build. And I had just released the deep dive into the new 2024 Assassin,
Hmm.
right? Or at least I just recorded that video, anyways. And I was all excited. I had the new player's handbook. I was just like reading up on every single class and subclass, and some of the mechanics changes and things. And it's like, ah, I can't, I can't go back. Like Treant Monk equated it in a conversation we had recently in a video, a collab video we
Mm.
recorded recently. Actually, it's going to come out next week. Um, we were talking about this, and it's like, especially for him, he plays D&D more than anybody I know. And he's like, I have been playing with like the same toys for 10 years
Yeah.
now, right? The same like Transformer characters. Like I got Optimus Prime, I got Snake Eyes, GI Joes. I got the same He-Man. I'm dating myself here now. I'm a child of the '80s. Uh, and I'm bored of these toys. Like
Mm.
I want and I've got all of these new shiny toys, and but I can't really like play with them yet because the embargo doesn't drop until August
Yeah.
1st. So what do you do? You know what I mean? And so that's where I was, and I was just like, I can't do another 2014 build video. What else can I do? Let's do a look back, And so then I thought, well, what if we did? I actually kind of chatted in my Discord. I've got a YouTube channel member thing,
Mhm.
and if you sign up, then you can, then you're on the Discord. And so I chat with those guys quite a bit, and I'm like, what do I do, guys? I don't want to do another 2014 rules build video. And somebody suggested, yeah, do like an awards show. And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. What if we did these categories? And so they kind of helped me craft it a little
Mm.
bit. And somebody said like it has to be called the Colby Awards. And that comment got like a ton of like hearts and thumbs ups and stuff like that. And I'm like, that feels a little almost self-aggrandizing, but okay, like I guess, it works. Um, and I don't remember if it was my idea or somebody else. I think it was somebody else's idea to say, "Oh, you should get like guest
Mm.
presenters, other YouTube content creators to like present the awards, present the nominees, like you do in an award show." I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." So yeah, I reached out to Will from D&D Shorts and Kelly and Monty from Dungeon Dudes and Chris Triant Monk. Those are the channels that I've worked most closely with
Mm.
in the past. I'd love to do collaborations with others too. And I just said, look, like this is what I'm doing. Here's like the nominees that you'd read off, and then you just open an envelope and read off like the winner. Here's the
Yeah.
winner. And if you want to say anything else, in addition to just reading this list, like feel free, especially if it's a joke at my expense, like please do, you know what I mean? Like just what but also don't feel obligated because I
Yeah.
don't want this to become some big project for you. And they were all like, yeah, great, happy to do it. And so they sent this stuff over, and it was so good. Like the no question, the best part of the video is watching, the other presenters
Mm.
like uh, do their little thing, like not unlike most award shows
Very
that you
true.
will watch, whether it's the Oscars or the Emmys or whatever, right? The best part is just people cracking jokes.
Mm.
And the Dungeon Dudes in particular, I feel like just hit a home run. Like
They did very well.
they're so good. They're so good. Like Kelly and Monty are the best, and they are so funny and so lovely. And Will also was hilarious, and Chris was great. Like they're just all great. Anyways, my biggest regret actually is that I recorded my I recorded the video before I got their stuff back. Do
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was editing it in. Well, actually my editor was editing it in, but like when I saw their stuff, I was just like, "Oh man, like this is so good and so funny." Like it should have been cutting back to me like laughing and wiping away
Mm.
tears, but instead I was just very dry, you know what I mean? I'm like, "Yeah, okay, let's talk about this build or whatever." And it's like, "Oh shoot." Like, yeah, it was comedy gold. Um and yet when it cuts to me, it's just like, okay, so this build is blah 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 blah, and I should have been laughing on camera for sure because it was quality stuff.
For next year's Colby's, I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a learning process. It's
yeah.
first year of a award show. It's a big, it's tricky.
Right. I'll ask ahead of time. And next year, if I do it again next year, which I think I might, I'll have to, I'll have to just look at this year's builds now. So the
Mm.
so the pool will be a lot smaller. Maybe there'll only be 3 nominees in each category, right? Which is fine. Anyways, maybe I'll have more categories too. But
You heard it here first.
yeah,
Have you had a positive reaction to the awards? Like, have you seen much of a reaction to it? I know we were super early on.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you usually know within a day or two, like, how the video is gonna
Mm,
perform. Um, and I mean, I can tell you now that it's been, we're what, 28 hours since launch. I'm just looking at my YouTube analytics here, and it's average. Compared to the last 10 videos that I've released, it's ranked number 5 as far as number of views. And I think what's happening, if I had to conjecture, is that, most of my videos, most of the viewers of my videos are subscribers,
mm,
right? But it's not all. It's maybe, depending on the video, it might be 60-70% of viewers are like subscribers, regular viewers,
mm.
right? And the other 30 to 40% are people who YouTube, showed my video thumbnail on the homepage and they went, "Oh yeah, like I like hex blades.
Yeah.
I'll click on that." You know what I mean? Or whatever. But they don't necessarily watch a lot of my content otherwise. My guess is that my subscribers seem to really love the video,
Mm.
right? And they're watching it a lot. But people who don't generally watch my stuff are like, the thumbnail says my best builds and the video title is the Colby Awards. And they're just like, eh. Like, who is this Chad that like thinks he's so cool that he deserves like an award show named after himself? No thanks, pass. And I was somewhat right. 80% of viewers
Mm.
are subscribers, 20% are not, which means, yeah, that it's higher than average of the viewers are subscribers. Um, anyways,
That's good though. That's what you
so
want. Like
yeah,
it was very much for
yeah,
all your subscribers, so it's good.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, when I compare that to, say a video from a month ago, it's more like 72% subscribers. So yeah,
I think that's still quite high for YouTube in general, though.
I have no idea.
Mm. Let's talk about one D&D, which you're
Yeah,
obviously excited for. So I don't have to ask you that part of the question, but I do want
no.
to know if you feel like it does enough to boost martial characters.
Mm. All right, so this now is going to be a spoiler for the for the video that
Ooh,
I did with Chris with Treant Monk. We recorded it last week, and it's going to come out next week on the 23rd. Anyways, we basically spent a couple of hours just talking about like the future of
mm,
D&D and making predictions about the meta and asking each other questions like, did it do this, did it do that, is this going to be better, is this going to be worse? One of the questions was, you know does the 2024 rule book, do the 2024 rules um, close the gap between marshals and casters? Does it narrow the gap between marshals and casters? If so, by how much? Why?
mm,
Why not? That kind of thing. So we talked at great length about this question, and I think maybe I could sum it up. We were pretty much in agreement, and I think the answer is it narrows the gap, but there's still a gap.
yeah.
Um, so you definitely are going to see, martial characters. I think not just the question on whether or not they will do more damage
Mm,
is, I think, still to be determined. Chris feels differently than I do. I think maybe, but maybe it depends. And I think burst damage is going to be generally reduced, but sustained damage might see a bump. That's kind of my feeling. Um, Regardless, the question, I think, the real question is, if casters are more powerful than martial characters
mm.
in D&D 5e, which I think they are, and I think most people would agree, right?
I think that's controversial, though.
Yeah, yeah. The question is why? Like, what makes them stronger?
Mm,
I don't think the answer is because they do more damage, right? Burst, maybe. Area of effect, multi-target,
mm,
maybe. But generally, no. Um, the reason they're more powerful is because they can do things like cast Wall of Force or
Mm.
Fear or Hypnotic Pattern or Mass Suggestion or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, or, healing spells and utility based stuff, Catnap, Tiny Hut, right? Stuff like that. That like marshals just they hit stuff,
Yeah.
and that's about it, right? With some exceptions, right? There's some exceptions to that. Some marshals are a little better at doing, bringing a little more in the form of
Mm.
utility, maybe protecting, kind of support from a protection standpoint, protecting their allies. And of course, you've got the spellcaster, one third caster subclasses like your Eldritch Knight and your Arcane Tricksters.
Mm.
Um, but again, sorry, I talk too much.
It's all good.
If the thing that makes casters more powerful than marshals then is not damage, but all of the other stuff they can do,
Mm.
particularly control and debuff, but also utility, right? Then yes, marshals, especially I think on that front, are getting a lot more stuff they can do in
Mm.
combat and even outside of combat that involves more than just doing damage. So their damage might have been increased a little bit depending on the class, depending on the subclass, depending on how you build them. Um, I would say not burst, but sustained probably. But then more than that, and more importantly than that, and the thing that narrows the divide is the fact that they can, do so many more other things.
Mm.
I mean, you look at the rogue with their what's it called? The new level 5 ability, strike, cunning
Yes.
strike, cunning strike.
Yes.
Um, where now they can blind or poison or even at higher level, and if you're willing to give up most of your sneak attack dice, like flat out knock somebody out, right? um that stuff is really good. That's
Mm.
really powerful, potentially, anyways, potentially. It's a lot of it's saving throw based, and especially if it's a constitution saving throw based, it's maybe less powerful, but still. And you look at the World Tree Barbarian.
Mm.
Gosh, I mean, they're teleporting, they're ensnaring their enemies, they're doing all kinds of
Mm.
stuff that just lets them bring more to the battlefield. That's more than just damage.
Mm.
And so, especially if they're going to be doing more damage, combined with the additional utility that they have and ways to buff and debuff and control, right? Um, I think I think the gap has been narrowed. Did I say this was going to be a summary?
It was summaries don't have to be short.
Anyways, um, yes, but the gap is still there because spells still exist,
Spells are still
and
spells.
spells are still spells, and they're really good. And some of the spells that should have been rebalanced didn't really get rebalanced. And some of this, I mean, and I will add, like, I still think that the most, that the highest damage dealing characters
Mm.
will be multi-classed gishes, right? Um, or let me rephrase that. Will be gishes.
Okay.
Sometimes multi-classed. Sometimes you could straight class a thing and do great. But yeah, like essentially getting to extra attack,
Mm.
getting to be able to make a lot of attacks, and then add spells,
Yeah.
to add to the damage of those attacks. Still, I think is going to be the most potent, at least from a damage perspective,
Mm.
character that you can build. And I'm not necessarily sad about that. In fact, I guess I would say I'm happy about that because I love gishes, and I love spell swords, and I love martial characters. My I do have a concern. There's one spell in particular that is really powerful, and it's, I think, too powerful. And um, it was in the playtest, and it is going to be in the new player's handbook. And I'm not going to say whether it was changed at all because I don't want to get into trouble with Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
But I think it's too powerful, and it worries me that it's like, okay, there's characters who take this spell, and there's everybody else.
Right.
And yeah, that makes me nervous because anytime there's a choice or an option in the game that is so much better than everything else,
Mm.
it starts to feel like it's not a choice anymore, right?
Yes.
And that was really kind of the problem with your Great Weapon Masters and your Sharpshooter feats from the 2014
Yeah.
rules, is it was really difficult to compete with those. You could do it. You'd have to get creative, I think. So, anyways, yeah. That was like a 15-minute answer to your question that I said was going to be a summary. There you go.
Nailed
Par
it.
par for the course.
um, do you wish that multi-classing worked in a different way in D&D?
I've seen other systems that do multi-classing differently.
Mhm.
And some of them I like more and some of them I like less, I guess I'll say. I think Pathfinder is a good example of one that I don't think I like as much. You can't really multi-class. You can sort of take some feats and features
Mm.
from another class as you gain levels in that system. And depending on if your GM allows it or not, you might be able to sort of do that in tandem with gaining power in your own class, or you might have to give up things from your own
Mm.
class in order to, take stuff from another class. But it's not true multi-classing. You never get access, like full access to, another class's
Yeah.
stuff. And I miss that when I'm playing and building for Pathfinder. If I could change one thing about how multi-classing works for D&D, I think I would change the minimum ability score requirements.
Mm.
And I don't say that with 100% confidence. I'm willing to be persuaded otherwise. But I don't know why a paladin necessarily has to have a 13 strength and a 13 charisma.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? In
Yeah.
order to, like, I get that for most paladins, those are going to be the most important
Yeah.
ability scores. I don't know why I couldn't, though, build a paladin who wasn't necessarily very strong.
Mm.
Like, I think Wizards of the Coast has gone to great lengths to open up sort of the ability for characters to kind of build the character they want to build
Yeah.
based on their concept, right? And elves no longer have to be agile and dexterous. They could be strong
Yeah.
or charismatic, right? And in the same vein, I don't know why a paladin has to be strong and charismatic, or that even a barbarian has to be like really strong,
Yeah.
or I guess not really strong because it's only a 13, moderately strong. Even
It's
like,
still
are
30%
there
stronger
no?
than the average person in that world, though, right? So
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah,
strong.
for sure, for sure. It's like, what, like, are there, like, in this barbarian tribe, everybody is like a little bit jacked, like there's no sort of
Push ups for
malnutrition
breakfast.
barbarians, right?
They've got good
Like,
macros.
or yeah, or sorcerers who like aren't particularly charismatic, you know what I mean? Like, um so yeah, I think I would change that if I could. Otherwise, I don't know that I'd change anything about the way multiclassing works in D&D. I think it works fine. But I guess, to be fair, that's really like the one big restriction, right? The only other things are small, like, oh well, you don't gain heavy armor proficiency if you don't take it at level 1, or
Yeah.
little things like that. But yeah, the big one is the minimum ability score requirement. I think I'd get rid of that if it were up to me. Um, Again, I'm not 100% on that, but I might be 90%.
And
I'm sure that from Wizards of the Coast perspective, and for those who would try and counter my argument, right? It's that, well, this opens up things that you could find a way to make characters like too powerful. If you took
mm,
this class and this class, and you didn't have to worry about them being mad, right?
yeah.
Multiple ability score dependent, but you could just focus on kind of their main stat and like give them a good constitution, and like you're good to go.
Yeah.
That it would be problematic from a game balance perspective. I think there might be an argument there, but I don't know because okay, I want to make a monk and a paladin,
Mm.
right? Well, I need a 13 wisdom, 13 dexterity, 13 charisma, 13 strength.
Yep.
Like I'm dumping constitution at that point, and even my main stat is just going to be okay.
Yep.
That's a weak character.
Yep.
You get rid of those minimum ability score requirements. Oh, okay, awesome. Well, you know what? Then in that case, I'm going to go like 16 dexterity. I'm going to dump strength. Who cares about that? Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna dump charisma. Who cares about that? And I'm gonna give myself a good wisdom score and a good constitution score. Okay, great. But like some of your paladin abilities are gonna suffer as a
Yeah.
result, right? Aura of protection is worthless with a crap charisma.
Yes.
Um, so maybe you're just doing a 2 level dip so that you can smite. Okay, is that gonna break the game? Hmm, maybe not with the 2024 rules because you can only smite once per turn now or once per round now. So that's definitely not going to break it,
Or
right?
smite. You talked earlier about balancing in your life and stuff. How do you find balancing, like being a family man with kids and your content creation, and presumably
Hmm.
other stuff? Because there's probably other stuff
Yeah,
you have to do as well.
yeah. Um, Good question. You know, I think I don't know that I've perfected the balance for sure. I think what I'm trying to do more and more as time goes on is err on the side of if something's got to give, it's going to be my gaming,
Hmm.
and then it's going to be the channel,
Yep.
and lastly, it will be family. You know what I mean? And I think there was a time where that was not in that order, and it made life challenging. I would say. Now, part of it was that I was when I first started the channel, much like you are experiencing right now, I'm sure I was working a full time job and then putting 20 to 25 hours a week into trying to like grow the
Mm.
channel and raise kids and be a husband. You know what I mean? And that was rough. It was a rough year and a half. Um, but then once I got to the point where I could like quit my job and let me backtrack and add and like thank goodness that I have a wife who is amazing and wonderful and so supportive and was just there really enabled me to be able to do that, right? Without her I never would have been able to. She supported me through it, and yeah, it was, and so it was really hard for both of us. I was working what felt like way too much and she was working way too much because I was
Yeah.
not as present as I could have been or should have been or wanted to be right at home. um, once I was able to quit that my job, my
Mm.
old job, and just do YouTube full time, um, it got a lot easier, of course, but it still took me a while. It still took me a few months to kind of go, okay, whoa, like things have been out of
Mm.
balance, and I need to shift here, right? Um, and I need to like almost like I need to now try and make up for what the last year and
Yeah.
a half, 2 years has looked like, right? And be at home more than ever, and
Yeah.
take time off from work to support my partner and my kids and spend more time with them and maybe go on a little more vacations than I normally would because like I got some making up to do here. And so that's kind of the place that I'm in now. And it's a great place to be. Like I am, make no mistake, like I am so blessed and lucky and fortunate to be in a place where I can, maybe work a little bit less, maybe
Mm.
take a day off, here and there to take a little vacation or even just to be at home. The kids are at school, and it's awesome to be able to say, okay, honey, like I'm just not gonna work today. Like I
Mm.
got the video recorded. I know that I'll have plenty of time next week to do the next one. Like I'm taking today off. Let's do something together. Let's, whether it's have fun or just as often like work on a project
Yeah.
at home that's been neglected, whatever it may be. And that's been great. So I mean, I guess I would just say, yeah, like kind of keeping things in priority for me anyways. It's family and then job and then like my free time.
Yeah.
um and that's great. And I do appreciate that I'm in a place where I have the luxury to, you know what I mean?
Mm.
For some people, and frankly for me, for many, many years, like, you couldn't really separate family from work, right?
Yeah.
Because supporting my family meant
Yes.
being able to pay the mortgage and, put food on the table. And I appreciate that that's, that not everybody can sort of go, well, I'm going to prioritize my family and work less.
Yes.
It's like, well, then in that case we might be homeless, in 6 months or whatever. So it's tough, but I'm very lucky and blessed to have gotten to the place where I am. But yeah, it was many years before I was able to. So it's nice to be here finally, I guess.
That's good. That's one final question. Uh,
Yeah.
let's talk exercise.
Hmm.
Talk to me
You
about
are
what you
are
do.
you making a comment about my shirt that is too small? I
I
got this
just
shirt.
look, man. I get
Okay,
it
I gotta tell you about this shirt because it's my new favorite shirt, and I
because it's
just
too
put a
small.
tweet out about it yesterday. Not because it's too small,
It
in
helps.
spite of it being too small. It's you're a Brit, so you'll appreciate this. It's
Yes, I do.
uh yeah, women in swords
Yep.
distributing, or sorry, women, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords.
Yep.
2024. I know that Dennis always said that it was not a great system of government, but this year it might be time to consider.
I kind of wish my
Um,
country had taken the same approach for once, to be fair, but that's
well, I ordered this online like I do most of my clothes these days, and sometimes a large is like a huge
yep,
garbage sack on me, and sometimes a medium is like an extra small.
yep.
And this time the medium was the extra small. So I'm getting, my friends are giving me a hard time about this shirt. So I'm obviously self-conscious about it, which is why I wanted to crack a joke. But anyways, yeah, working out. What do you want to talk
What do
about?
you do? Like, how do you fit that in? What do you fit in?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Gosh, I go to the gym every day, pretty much. Not on Sundays, I suppose, but pretty much Monday through Saturday. And I'm lucky because I've got a little office at kind of this outdoor mall that's really close to where I live,
Mm.
and the gym is literally like I can see it out my window. It's just right there. And so every day I'll come into the office, I'll sit down, I'll usually like go through comments, like check comments and respond to some, right, that YouTube highlights for me, which is not every comment because that would be impossible, but YouTube just highlights some. I don't know how they choose which comments to highlight, but I'll go through and check them and, give them a like and, give them a response and things. And then, do whatever other, like, check my emails, other kind of mundane sort of running a business, being a sole proprietor or whatever entails. And then I will make up a little pre-workout drink and go to the gym, and usually for about an hour. Right now I often will use, there's this app, and this is not a sponsored plug, but I'm going to plug it anyway. It's called Transform.
Mhm.
I really like it. And it's one of those things where, and I'm sure there's a million out there like this, but you put in your height, your weight, your age, your body type, your, what your workout goals are, et cetera. And then it just like creates a customized workout for
Mhm.
you. How customized it actually is probably up for debate. I'm sure my workout is going to probably be pretty similar to other workouts, but I don't know. Anyways, and as well as like, they won't do meal plans, but it will be like, here's some guidelines for like your macros, so your carbs, your protein, your fat, etc., how many calories, blah blah blah, which I don't pay that close attention to, if I'm being honest. But I try a little bit to be like, okay, maybe I don't get rice in the burrito today, or maybe I won't have a Coke this time, but I'll have one next time. That kind of thing. But anyways, and then yeah, I just follow the workout, and that's nice because it kind of removes the the thinking
Mm.
from it, which to me is the hardest part. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I've been consistent about working out for 25 years now, probably. And it's to the point where it's a nice place to be, where it's like if I don't exercise, I feel worse. Do you know what I mean? Than like
Yes.
when I do. Like getting to the gym is no longer hard.
Yeah.
And that I appreciate is not the same for everybody. And it wasn't for me either at first, right? Um, but yeah, it's like if I don't go, then I'm like ornery and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And feeling like restless and just like stuff like that. So that's nice. And yeah, so I like that app. Sometimes I'll take a break from the app and instead just do the gym 3 times a week, where I'll try to work like every muscle group at least once,
Hmm.
and then I'll just run a couple other times. So I'll go on maybe like a 3 or 4 mile run, um, which I really enjoy. I used to hate running, but it's actually something that I really enjoy now. But I'll just do that when the weather's nice. So like spring and fall, that's kind of my regiment. Summer
Hmm.
and winter is just gym because being outside is a little more challenging, unless I'm going to be like skiing or mountain biking or something like that. So,
Cool.
anyways, yeah, I enjoy it, and it's easy and convenient. So I'm lucky in that way for sure.
Nice. Um, have you got anything at all that you wanna plug other than the channel, obviously, which I'll be linking to? So.
No, I don't think so. And thanks. No, like mostly, I just can never express enough my gratitude for, you know, all of the people that watch and support and like and join as channel members. Like it's crazy to me that like this is what I get to do every day, right? Is like think about D&D and other role playing games and like make characters for them, which I do anyways.
Hmm.
Like I was doing this with my free time. Now I'm just putting it in a spreadsheet and hitting the record button while I talk about it, right? It's such a charmed life, that I'm so grateful for, and so grateful to yeah, all the people who watch and and give me support. Like, I don't know, I was really nervous about like being online,
Mm.
right? Because the internet is the internet, and I'm daily amazed at like the community that has grown up around my channel, like on my Discord too, but even just in the comments, like I almost never get trolls,
Mm.
right? Like the people are just so wonderful and lovely and kind and generous and complimentary. And even if there's criticism, it's very rarely like mean spirited,
Mm.
right? So I don't know. I'm just lucky and grateful. So nothing else to plug. My community. That's what I'll plug because they're awesome and amazing and wonderful, and I love them.
Awesome. We just have to say goodbye now to the people.
Okay.
Goodbye, people.
Well, goodbye and thanks, Jason, for the time. This was a lot of fun,
It was a
and
pleasure. I appreciate you making time for it.
yeah, of course. If anybody's going to be at Gen Con, maybe I could plug that. I'll be at Gen
Mm.
Con in a couple of weeks here, August 1st through the 4th. So um, probably look for me at like the Dungeon Dudes events. I'll just be trailing along as part of their entourage as a fanboy.